September 4th, 1939. The UK has declared war on Germany, and a once quiet mansion in Milton Keynes is now bustling with activity, and its history has become known as one of the main reasons World War II ended in victory for the Allies. The Authority Group presents The Secrets of the Codebreakers of World War II. The high-level intelligence produced at Britain's Bletchley Park, codenamed Ultra, provided crucial assistance to the Allied war effort. When the German Air Force began bombing London, the Government Code and Cipher School was moved to the British Communications Headquarters at Buckinghamshire, England, about 50 miles north of London, between Oxford and Cambridge. This unpretentious site, known as War Station X, housed a staff of less than 100 in 1939 to more than 7,000 in 1944. Statisticians, cryptologists, and technicians, as well as clerical workers, were recruited from local universities. The atmosphere of extreme secrecy within its college campus setting was transformed into a bustling headquarters at the mansion, the courtyard, and the numerous huts. Tight security prevailed in each component and in the entire 300-acre complex at Bletchley Park.
The British assembled what I believe was probably the greatest aggregation of brain power ever in one place at one time in the 20th century. They brought in mathematics professors from Cambridge, they brought in linguists, they brought in puzzle champions, gamesters, a whole range of people with special talents.
The Enigma cipher was the backbone of German military and intelligence communications during the 1930s. Designed to secure banking communications, the Nazi military was quick to see its potential.
The Enigma machine was originally invented for banks and businesses, was used commercially for half a decade, and in the mid-1920s, the German military realized that it needed new ways to secure its communications. They found the Enigma, an off-the-shelf machine, thought it was good but not quite good enough. They made security improvements to it, and it was adopted by all three German services. When they adopted it, it was the most secure, the most powerful cipher machine in the world.
The Enigma cipher, originally developed by Polish engineers and then modified by the British, served as the backbone of German military and intelligence communication. The Nazi military was quick to see the Enigma's potential in World War II. The Germans, known as mechanical innovators, further improved the Enigma system and continued to claim that there was no way the code could be broken. In the spring of 1941, the British had captured U-110 and with it got their first look at an intact Enigma machine, the device responsible for generating the Nazi-coded communications.
So with that first Marine Enigma, of course, we have now got the facility to actually take it apart, look at it, put it back together again, complete with documents. So therefore we now have the ability to really take a serious deep look at the methods by which Enigma was being encrypted and decrypting on the German side.
It was a most remarkably complex and adaptable piece of German-engineered equipment. The settings for the apparatus were changeable, sometimes done more than once daily. Relying in part on captured German documents and the Enigma machine from U-110, the key to breaking the cipher was near. On June 1944, the German submarine U-505 was captured by American forces off the coast of Africa and towed across the Atlantic to Bermuda and then to the United States. The British had recruited some of the most brilliant minds from around the UK as part of discrete counterintelligence groups. The lead codebreaker was a young mathematician and computer scientist named Alan Turing. Cryptology was brought into the modern world of communications by Turing's ingenious logic, statistical theory, advanced technology, and superb organization. Bletchley Park, located about 50 miles north of London, was situated near an important communications intersection. Major road and rail systems, along with telephone and teleprinter technology, converged at Milton Keynes, enabling access to all parts of the country. After meticulous preparation and a series of trial runs, British codebreakers were able to intercept and decrypt a vast number of messages that had been monitored using the Enigma machine. These decrypts provided substantial aid to the Allied intelligence during the Second World War.
the significance of the code breaking at Bletchley Park can be overestimated. It was hugely significant. And one of the interesting things is that Winston Churchill was aware of this. He's someone who always took a keen interest in science and technology and also in intelligence matters. So actually when it mattered, he did put his weight behind supporting the code breaking at Bletchley Park and making sure that they had the resources they needed to undertake their work. He knew that Britain's survival in the Second World War depended on making sure that we got the number of imports that we required, and he knew that our survival ultimately depended on persuading the United States to play a more active role in the war and a more active role particularly in the defence of the Atlantic.
Bletchley Park created individual teams that worked in multiple shifts around the clock, in huts that relied on cryptologists, translations and listen posts. Then encoded transmissions were sent to Allied forces around the globe. The brilliant Turing developed the Enigma cipher system in the secluded cottage of Bletchley Park at Milton Keynes in central Britain. Hundreds of women from the Royal Navy Service, known as Wrens, were drafted into code-breaking and intelligence roles. Monitoring stations received the enemy's radio messages that were translated from German, then decoded and analysed at individual units at Bletchley Park. By 1943, the women of Bletchley Park numbered over 7,200.
There were a lot of women overseas during World War II. Women in the military, some of them went overseas. And then there were women in the OSS. And in many cases, they were doing really kind of clandestine, amazing things. They were serving as spies, and some of them got involved in going behind enemy lines before D-Day. And there were also women who were in parts of Europe that were invaded by the Nazis, and they would then kind of act as conduits for the US government. And so it's really, again, a situation where women were doing so many more things than their job titles indicated or than really were given credit for doing.
Right in London, the CIA, the OSS was organizing, and I was in the counterintelligence, which the messages that came in, every one of them was reviewed, and I was in that section. And then they needed the people in the field to disseminate information which we had examined. As it came in, we'd look at it. And they sent me to a series of radio stations for collecting information. And we all knew the code perfectly well, which I can't even remember a word of it today. The agents that were flown into Europe had their little suitcase with the radio. I worked in Algeria and Sicily and France, and when the war ended, I was in France.
Stateside, a similar top-secret U.S. Navy decoding program was run out of Washington, D.C., with the National Cash Register Company of Ohio as the contractor manufacturing the needed equipment. The Enigma code had cracked. Now decipherable, Navy engineers working out of NCR's vacant plant were now charged with developing a faster method of running combinations in an attempt to decode intercepted messages before the information gleaned went stale. They did it, and a new high-speed decoding machine called a bomb was created to run all possible Enigma combinations at unimaginable speeds.
Now, during the war, I worked here at Bletchley Park and in one of the outstations on a machine like this, called a bomb, B-O-M-B-E. Now, this machine had only one purpose in life. It was used to find the settings on the rotors of the Enigma machine.
Once designed and tested, members of the Women's Volunteer Emergency Service and Navy Waves were brought to Ohio to begin production on the machines that were then transported to the Naval Annex in Washington for use.
One of the things that probably not enough gets said about, and that's about the code breakers. I have talked to several of the women who did that, and I would ask them what they did, and they would say, well, I can't talk about it. Well, then eventually you got down to that's what they were doing. They were code breakers. And they were briefed by the FBI that if they ever talked about what they did, they would be shot.
As all of this was taking place, the US and UK increased monitoring stations to track radio communication between German U-boats at sea and the Nazi command center in Lorient, France. The monitors that listened to these radio communications in the Atlantic would forward the German messages over to Bletchley Park in Britain and the US Navy in Washington, D.C. The US Navy design ran at least 20 times faster than a similar machine created by the Brits. Once the British recognized the American machine's effectiveness and the skill of US Navy codebreakers, they handed over most of the deciphering operation of 4-rotor Enigma machines to the United States. The Kriegsmarine was dependent on sending and relaying coded messages to the command center in France. Despite being unaware that the Allies had broken the code, Admiral Karl Donitz still installed new 4-rotor Enigmas inside the German U-boats, and they transferred many of the 3-rotor Enigmas to the Nazi Army and Air Force. By the close of 1943, 77 bombs ran continuously at the American Naval Annex in Washington, D.C. Their code breakers labored round the clock, listening and deciphering messages. Most importantly, from a strategic standpoint, German documents would later show that they did so without Nazi leaders being aware that the once seemingly impenetrable Enigma code had, in fact, been broken. Ironically enough, the German U-boats' effective Wolfpack strategy would ultimately undo them. Kriegsmarine attack strategy required constant relay of locations of U-boats and prospective targets between the coordinating subs. This required a massive amount of radio traffic that was picked up by strategic listening posts around the globe. This sheer mass of data, coupled with intact Enigma machines from the U-110 and the U-505, gave researchers the volume of figures and tools they needed to finally crack the code. Thanks to a dedicated and loyal group of codebreakers, victory was accelerated for the Allies during World War II. Even many years after the end of the war, a huge number of those who aided the counterintelligence still won't talk about what happened behind closed doors. Though secrecy is closely guarded and we may never know all of those who worked in these roles, because of them, victory was achieved earlier than anticipated, and many lives were saved. This momentous World War II project, produced by the Authority Group, contains original footage of when Bletchley Park was reopened for the first time in 70 years. In addition, we offer on-camera interviews with exclusive eyewitness accounts and historic film footage of World War II. Based upon the leading motion picture entitled The Imitation Game, the story about codebreaker Alan Turing during the Second World War. The story of the secret Enigma machines at Bletchley Park has been recognized by the Golden Globes, Academy Awards, and the top international film festivals. The Authority Group is offering components for short-form feature material or complete long-form programming. This project is a unique account of the secret victory achieved during World War II.